A question that I'm frequently asked is, what are the minimal amount of supplements, in other words, specifically, which food supplements should a person use if they're kind of on a budget and can't afford to spend a lot of money on food supplements? And let's face it, a lot of these food supplements are very expensive. Uh, ta- I'm going to give you my list of what I consider the best minimal supplement program for anyone involved in bodybuilding, weight training, or fitness activities. But before that, to fully explain why I came up with this list, I have to give you a little background of my philosophy. First of all, if you go to the average doctor or physician and you ask them, which supplement should I take, the stock answer that the physician will give you will be, you don't need any food supplements. They're all junk. They might not use that pejorative word junk, but they'll say that food supplements are not necessary simply because you can get all your nutrients in a balanced diet. We hear that term balanced diet. Now, the problem with a balanced diet is, let me just say that if you do consume a balanced diet, your supplement needs will be minimal, absolutely minimal. The problem with the notion of a balanced diet. Now, what is a balanced diet? Let me explain. It's consuming foods in each of various what they call food groups: fruits, vegetables, meats, dairy products, and so on. When I used to give, I've given a couple of nutrition seminars over the years, and I used to begin each seminar by asking the audience, how many people in the room follow a balanced diet? And when I first said that, about half the people in the room would raise their hands. Then the second question is, I'd say, how many people in the room consume dairy products, the equivalent of almost a quart of milk a day, and eat cheese to supply the calcium that's required in the diet. And now the hand count would be about less than half of what it was the first time. And my third question is, of those remaining people that say they follow a balanced diet, how many of you consume at least 4 to 5 and up to 11 servings a day of fruits and vegetables? When I'd ask that, maybe one hand would go up, and usually none. What this indicated was just about everyone in the room did not follow a balanced diet. As a consequence, these people would be lacking nutrients. Now, according to the physicians, these people don't need any vitamins and minerals, don't need any supplements, which is an absolutely asinine statement, because if these people aren't eating the foods that are missing from their diet, where are they going to get it? From the air? No, it's, if they're not getting, if they don't take a supplement. So the balanced diet stuff is crap. And the second thing that's always annoyed me, did you ever notice certain supplements? If you look at the bottle, it says ask your physician about this particular supplement, or ask your physician about nutrition. That's always annoyed me because if you know anything about medical education, nutrition is an elective subject in medical school. There's a heavy burden of academics to anybody who goes through a medical school. There's a tremendous amount of data to be absorbed in the average 4 years of medical school, and very few students are going to take an elective course on nutrition. They do take some medical biochemistry where they can possibly diagnose nutritional deficiencies, but when it comes to supplement knowledge, or how to put together certain diets, whether certain diets are superior to the others, they don't know much more than a person on the street. Your average physician is not your nutrition expert at all, not at all. I should hasten to add, I've met several physicians over the years, many of whom I've interviewed for articles, who went a little bit further. They studied nutritional biochemistry on their own. Some of these people knew quite a bit about nutrition, but they did this beyond their medical education. So the average physician is not the person to ask about supplements. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. What about science studies? Should you depend on science studies? Well, science studies, if they're properly designed would mean a randomized controlled trial, they call it RCTs, double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized studies. These studies usually provide pretty good information, but they also are not infallible. A lot of them are just turned out to be wrong. But right now, I'd say they're the closest to being the best source of information about nutrition. The problem with science studies is a lot of the, let's say, some of these nutritional supplements, or I should say, the ingredients contained in the supplements, have not really been examined too thoroughly by human studies. So the problem there is that, if you depend entirely on animal studies, it's taking a gamble, because what works in a rat or a mouse or some other lab animal doesn't necessarily carry through to humans. It may or may not work. So science studies are a fairly good source of information, but not infallible. Uh, and also you have to also consider the faith factor. For example, I've seen statements online where people, when I've mentioned supplements, they make statements like all supplements are snake oil, which I find kind of humorous, because the people making these statements, first of all, do not know almost nothing about the supplements. Second of all, to broadly classify every nutritional supplement as snake oil makes no sense at all. It doesn't. There's no basis in fact. Uh, but there is a faith factor. What I mean by that is, it has to do with what science calls the placebo effect. There's a lot of in a lot of instances, bodybuilders, athletes will take supplements that aren't really doing anything for them. They're not doing anything. In other words, the ingredients contained in these supplements are not active. And yet, the athletes and bodybuilders who use these supplements swear by them. They say, oh, I'm making all kinds of gains. Now, how do you explain that? You explain that simply by the placebo effect or the faith principle. In other words, they believe so thoroughly in the effectiveness of these supplements that they subtly do things that, without even realizing it, that are actually producing gains. For example, they might train a little harder. They might push for extra reps because they think that these supplements have given them more energy, more recovery, or whatever. But even though the supplement is inactive or inert, what they're actually doing, their belief is actually fostering real gains. So you have to question now, is it worth buying a supplement that's not really doing anything, but you're making gains from? This is something that all of you have to kind of answer for yourself. Personally, considering the expense of a lot of these supplements, I personally would advise against it, but that's just me. I prefer to go with supplements that have at least some science behind them. There's a couple of gray area supplements, I call them, where the science isn't rock steady at the moment. But when I've tried some of these supplements. Give you a quick example: the amino acid citrulline, which I've discussed in past videos. Now, if you look at the scientific literature about citrulline, it's paradoxical. Some studies show no effect at all. Other studies show a tremendous effect. Citrulline is a more effective form of the amino acid arginine, in the sense that it can be more effectively converted into nitric oxide. Now, here's an interesting fact that I've noticed about citrulline, is if you look at the suggested doses of citrulline, it's between 6 and 8 grams, taken about an hour before training. I've experimented with different dosages of citrulline, starting at 2 grams up to 8 grams. I must tell you that I felt absolutely nothing from citrulline until I ingested the full 8-gram dosage. In other words, it took a full 8 grams for me to feel anything. And this is something, again, that you have to experience. And what did I feel? I felt extra workout endurance. I had this feeling that I didn't need to rest at all between sets. It was very odd. I didn't feel any fatigue at all during the workout. And that's what citrulline did for me. But I discussed that in another video. Now, another thing I would strongly suggest before I mention the specific supplements is be careful who you buy supplements from. Buy it from quality established companies. The big problem and the reason why people call supplements snake oil is there's a lot of evasion in the supplement industry. In other words, there's a lot of people who get into this strictly to make money. They don't produce quality products. The FDA, or the Food and Drug Administration, doesn't have the personnel to monitor all these companies. Some of them get away with murder. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. For example, you probably have seen these so-called proprietary formulas. This is where you see a supplement. Usually you find them in pre-workout or post-workout supplements. Some of these things have as many as 30, 40, 50 ingredients. However, they never list exact dosages. They're always put in just one big box, and they'll put proprietary formula, 3,000 milligrams, and then it lists all the ingredients, but it doesn't give you the milligram amount for each ingredient. That's called a proprietary formula. The ostensible reason for doing that is the companies that produce these products don't want their competitors to copy their products. However, for the consumer of these products, it's a very bad deal, because when these products have been analyzed, it turns out that these so-called proprietary nutrients are, to use a term that's frequently used, pixie dusted. In other words, they use minute amounts. Some of these ingredients, some of these nutrients are a little bit on the expensive side. So what they do is they put in infinitesimal amounts that will have absolutely no activity, not even an activity to power an ant. And they put this in a supplement slated for human use. So, these proprietary formulas are doing very, very little, yet there's a lot of claims made. What the companies do is quote research on the individual nutrients, and some of the research is pretty solid and shows real results. So the consumer thinks, okay, because this so-called nutrient has science behind it and because it's in the product, it must be a good product. But what the consumer doesn't realize, if it's packaged as a proprietary formula, you probably have subnutritional amounts of the nutrient, not enough to do anything. So I would say to by far avoid proprietary supplements unless you want to pay a lot of money for very, very little actual nutrition. Another problem, and I've mentioned this before in articles and videos, has to do with the whey protein products. There's been a trend in recent years. Whey protein, unfortunately, the wholesale cost has gone up tremendously because of supply and demand. Whey protein started out as a waste product of cheese manufacturing, and over the years it got more and more popular. And it is a good, solid protein. There's no question about it if you get real whey protein. However, as the wholesale price of whey protein increased, some unscrupulous companies decided to do what they call amino acid spiking, where they add amino acids to a whey protein. You'll see it on the label. Whey protein isolate with added branch chain amino acids, taurine, glutamine. Well, the reason they're adding those amino acids is because each dose of that protein actually only has about half the amount of actual protein on the listed on the label. By adding the amino acids, they could artificially inflate the amount of protein you get per serving. It's basically absolutely cheating the consumer. It's a misrepresentation, and it's a ripoff. So do not buy any whey protein that has added amino acids. Whey protein itself is loaded with amino acids. There's no reason at all. Branch chain amino acids, whey protein contains 16% branch chain amino acids. You don't need any extra branch. It's just a way to cheat you out of your money. Don't buy whey protein supplements that have added amino acids. Okay. Another thing, a frequent mistake made is people will buy a supplement and maybe not use a lot of it, put it on the shelf somewhere, and then when they use it, when they try and use it again, they look at the expiration date and it's past the expiration date. So they think, oh, okay, the supplement's no good, let me toss it. Well, that's a big mistake, because what does the expiration date mean? All the expiration date on a supplement means is that's the date that the supplement is guaranteed to have the potency listed on the label. That's the expiration that's the guarantee of the potency on the label. In other words, past that date, they're saying we don't guarantee the potency past that date. But it doesn't mean that the potency declines, and it doesn't mean that the supplement goes bad. As an example, I once used a product. I'm not going to mention the company name because this is not an advertisement, and I'm not a shill for supplement companies, so I'm not going to mention the name. However, it was a pre-workout supplement. It was sent to me. They sent me about 20 boxes of this stuff. This was many years ago, and I didn't want it. I didn't want to use it, so I stuffed it in a closet. Many years later, I just happened to open the closet and I saw the boxes. This was about 10 years later, and I found the boxes and I looked at the expiration date, and all of them had, sure enough, they'd expired. Well, let's see, it was actually 15 years after I got these boxes, and the supplement had expired 10 years, a whole decade. They'd been expired for a decade. However, they were in sealed envelopes that contained no air. I stored these boxes in a cool, dark place where it wasn't exposed to oxygen. So I opened up the envelope to see, I could tell if a protein has gone bad, you can often detect it by the odor. It doesn't smell right. But when I opened up one of these envelopes, it smelled fine. To make a long story long, I wound up using all 10 boxes of a supplement that had expired a decade previously with no problems whatsoever. So don't buy that crap about, well, it's no good past the expiration date, we got to toss it. The one exception to this could be oil supplements, supplements such as fish oil. I mean, if they're way past their expiration date, there's a good chance they've gone rancid. Those you have to be careful about. But maybe some oil capsule supplements too, like vitamin E. Those you have to be careful. Even those supplements, though, usually last from 2 to 3 years past their expiration date. So that's another myth that you should discard right away. Now, okay, let's talk about the supplements. Minimal supplements I recommend. I'll give you my brief reasons why. As I said earlier, I think everybody should be taking a high potency vitamin mineral because most of us, again, I could count on the fingers of one hand. I can't even count on the fingers of one hand. People I've met that have followed an actual balanced diet. I mean, athletes avoid dairy products because they don't want to drink milk or eat cheese or whatever. And a lot of athletes are on low carb diets where they don't eat enough fruits and vegetables. If you don't take a vitamin mineral, you're going to be in trouble. You will get a nutritional deficiency. So why not take the simple route? Get a good, high potency vitamin mineral, and use it. I know I take one. I take a 2-a-day formula. I'm not going to mention the name of the company because I'm not endorsing the company. This isn't an ad for the company. But, just you look at the label and see if it has a pretty good amount of potency, well above the let's say, minimal daily requirements. You want to have a little bit more than that. The second thing I think that supplement that is good to take on a minimal supplement program for somebody involved in weight training is creatine monohydrate. I've discussed this in past videos, but let me reiterate fast that buy creatine monohydrate. Don't spend extra money on the fancy high-tech creatines, creatine HCl, creatine this, creatine that, creatine ethyl ester. There's no evidence whatsoever that they're superior to plain old creatine monohydrate. Save your money, buy creatine monohydrate. Don't bother doing a creatine load. It's basically a waste of money. Just take 1 teaspoon a day of creatine. In 30 days, your muscles will be loaded. Next supplement I recommend, and this applies to people that don't eat fatty fish such as mackerel, halibut, salmon, that type of fish. If you don't eat those types of fish, you really should be taking a fish oil supplement. I take a fish oil supplement because I detest fish. I used to eat a ton of tuna fish when I competed as a bodybuilder. I can't stand fish. I don't eat it at all. I admit that maybe it's a little bit of a problem, but then again, look, I avoid all the mercury. That's another story. But what I do is I take a fish oil. I prefer a liquid fish oil because you have to take too many capsules. I take the equivalent of about, I take anywhere from 5 to 8 grams a day of fish oil. It's really good to take. For example, my protein drinks contain no fat, and I take some vitamins with it that are fat soluble, such as A, D, E, and K. And you have to have a source of fat to absorb those vitamins. So if you take like 2 tablespoons of fish oil or a tablespoon of fish oil like I do, there's the fat you need to absorb the vitamins. So it can be useful for that alone. The next supplement I'd recommend, and this just about applies to everyone, is a vitamin D supplement. Vitamin D supplements are extremely inexpensive. They're tiny little capsules. Unless you go out in the sun, and the sun has to be in the right part of the sky to emit the right spectrum of ultraviolet rays to make vitamin D in your body. Unless you get that exposure, you will likely be deficient in vitamin D. It's not found in many foods. So I would suggest taking a vitamin D supplement. For most people, I'd say 2,000 units are about right. However, I suggest if you really want to know exactly how much vitamin D you need, go get a medical blood test for something called 25-dehydroxycholecalciferol. A little tough to pronounce, but that'll tell you your vitamin D status. If it's below 30, like if it's in 20 or less, you're going to have to start out with maybe 4,000 or 5,000, even up to 7,000 units of D until you normalize your vitamin D plasma level. That form of vitamin D, by the way, is the active hormonal form. That's the form that circulates in your blood. Vitamin D itself is actually a what do they call that? A pre-hormone, or in other words, it's actually converted into an active form in the kidneys. Next supplement. A multi-mineral. Why do I suggest a multi-mineral? Because, among other things, they found that 86% of the American population is deficient in the mineral magnesium, and people tend to be deficient in minerals. Again, you have to eat a wide variety of foods to get sufficient minerals. And if you're not eating a wide variety of foods, I'm talking fruits, vegetables, grains, dairy products. If you're not eating these foods, and you're involved, especially if you're involved in weight training, you should be taking a multi-mineral. People don't realize vitamins most of them act as coenzymes. But what activates those enzymes? Minerals. So without minerals, vitamins are virtually useless. So I recommend a good multi-mineral. I take a multi-mineral. I take 2 in the morning, 2 at night. And also, the multi-minerals contain zinc, which I've noted in past videos, very important mineral for people involved in bodybuilding. Zinc is involved in the metabolism of insulin, growth hormone, and testosterone. Extremely important, and it's also important for your immune system. The next supplement, again, depends on your diet. That would be a whey protein isolate without spiked amino acids. Just get a 100% whey protein isolate. This is only necessary if you're not getting enough protein from your diet. Now, the recommended amount of protein for somebody involved in bodybuilding is 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight. If it comes out to, let's say, an average of about 1 gram per pound of body weight. If you're ingesting that much protein from your food, you don't really need a whey protein isolate. So I wouldn't say it's a waste of money. It's just not necessary. However, if you're not getting that range of protein, or if you don't have time to eat your meals, the whey protein could be a good addition. So that's that. I'd also recommend a little extra vitamin C, 500 milligram doses. Don't take more than 500. Your blood becomes saturated with vitamin C when you take 200 milligrams orally. Anything over 200 milligrams, a lot of it is just pissed right out. This idea of taking mega doses, 5,000, 10,000, most of it's going to wind up in your urine within about an hour or two. However, if you take 500, it's a good balance, a little bit more than you need at one time, but that's what I use. I use 500 milligram dosages. I take it about maybe once or twice a day. Vitamin C lasts in the blood for 12 hours. So it's good to take 1 dose in the morning, 1 dose in the evening. This way you will have a good plasma level of vitamin C for 24 hours. Another supplement I recommend is vitamin E, because it's very difficult to get in food. Nobody's going to drink a bunch of oils, which are the best source of vitamin. I mean, if you drink too much oil, your fat contains 9 calories per gram. To get the vitamin E that really produces health effects, you'd have to drink like a quart of oil. It's going to put too much body fat. It's ridiculous to even suggest that. Some nutritionists say, you don't need to take vitamin E, you can get it in oil. Oh, really? Okay. Who's going to drink a quart of oil, you moron? So I'd say to take take vitamin E supplements. I recommend at least 800 units a day. Those of you who are interested in cardiovascular protection against the onset of prostate cancer in men, you want to take a vitamin E that contains the gamma tocopherol form. Gamma tocopherol. I use a form that's mainly gamma tocopherol. I'm again not going to mention the name because this is an advertisement. I'm not out to make money for supplement companies. So, you'll have to figure that one out on your own. The last one I'd recommend is something I have to admit, I just started using it about 7-8 months ago based on my research, is a probiotic supplement. The information that's accumulating on the importance of the intestinal microbiome, which is the population of intestinal bacteria, is massive. I mean, I've talked about it in a past video. I can't go into it here, but it affects virtually every aspect of health, from the immune system to the brain function to cardiovascular protection. And, as such, I think it's important for everybody to take a probiotic supplement. What I recommend is getting one that has at least 30 billion CFU units, or 30 billion, they call it CFU. That's the number of bacteria in there. You want to get one that is multi-strain, that has maybe 8 or more strains of bacteria, because all of them do a little bit different things. You take it I take it only once a day, and that's about it, really. I mean, I know even the list I provided here might seem a little long, but I think these are the rock bottom bare essentials for anybody who's seeking good health, wants to prevent disease, and wants to make some muscle gains. Of course, there's many, many other supplements, but I would say that they are kind of more or less voluntary. There's others, beta-alanine. There's many others I could talk about, but they're not absolutely necessary, especially if your money's tight and you're on a budget. These are the ones that you should really consider using, just about everybody. And again, consider, like, for example, the whey, whether you really need extra protein. The creatine should be useful for anybody and that kind of thing. Unless, even with the creatine, if you're eating meat 3 to 4 times a week, forget the creatine. You don't need it. You're already eating creatine from the meat. So again, it depends on your diet. You have to figure it out. So, and if you want further information about nutrition, exercise science, hormonal therapy, fat loss techniques that work, anti-aging research. When I say anti-aging research, I'm not talking about, living forever. I wish I could tell you how to do that. I'd like to know that myself. But what I'm talking about is aging in a way that you retain your mental faculties and your physical faculties. You're able to walk, you're able to work out. I present the research that tells you how to do that now. Also, I have a lot of information on supplements, ergogenic aids. All of this is in my Applied Metabolics newsletter, www.appliedmetabolics.com. The best source of information, better than any website, any blog, any magazine. Did I say Why would I even mention magazines? Anyway, but the point is, it's the best source of information. Nobody can match my 55 years of study and experience. Nobody. There's nobody I see around who can match that. And I put it all into this newsletter. I'll save you a ton of money, and you'll learn a lot. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how many degrees you have. You will learn something in every issue of my newsletter. I guarantee that. I promise that. www.appliedmetabolics.com. Trust me, you will learn a lot. If you want to have the best friend you'll ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. They are just terrific, loving creatures, the most loyal, trustworthy, honest creatures on earth. Adopt a dog. You won't be sorry. Take care.